Live. Okay, Hythloday. This is just a general reply to you and what I understand of you over the many years. I better check the audio. Oh, it's having reply to you and what I understand of you over the many years. All right. So here's the thing, and where I think it's been left. Well, there's a lot of details. It's not where it's been left. But here's the thing, looking at some of your recent videos. Not the one. This is just so that I have a thumbnail of you up or whatever. Um, if it was one in particular, I'm thinking about that one where you said waves don't really exist per se in the same sense that circles don't exist in nature. We have this abstraction of a circle. Everything in nature is some approximation of that. Okay, now that's interesting. I understand that metaphor, or that in this case it might be literally true if a wave is a mathematical structure like sine waves. Maybe you could say sine waves don't really exist in nature. Um, I would, there's a technicality that they exist as abstractions, but that we use. But the point is that they're not what Trick would call ontologically out there. And I basically, as a skeptic, I agree with that in all concepts. There is no concept that turns out to be out there. Now, the related thing to me, and yeah, I'm mixing these two together, is the same with the field. You're like, you don't believe in fields. But to me, you're saying something isn't out there that is a concept that people have about what's out there, and that's not really what's out there. But my point is, well, is something out there that is like that? And that might sound weird because people often are assuming that we try to find the fundamental things and then we build our understanding up starting from them. Now, I'm a reductionist. I like to break things down into parts and build them up starting from the smallest things. But we don't actually start from there. The way I have put it in the past, which is evidently not effective, but that's on me, uh, is, we start from the middle. So, for example, with a phenomena like a wave, um, I've seen this phenomena, right? Ripples in the water. It has gotten my attention. And like some people were saying, the wave isn't there, just the water. And to me, this is like, I think, an error where people don't take time into account, right? Like the static mathematical analysis of a moment. You can freeze everything and put it into momentum vectors. But, in nature, talk about something that doesn't really happen as a frozen moment. So time is fundamental at physics. That's why you have to use calculus. Whether or not it solves the continuity problem, that's interesting stuff. You've been doing some interesting commentary. But anyway, not that you ever didn't. But, but anyway, so, okay, here's how I'll summarize to go forward. As a skeptic, I believe all concepts, are false in the sense of what they propose is sort of the case out there. And what I'm really looking for in my stuff, what I'm asking, what I'm trying to say is working out from my experiences, like seeing a wave, how does that work? Now, my experiences of seeing a circle, similar, because you could say, well, no circles exist, but do wheels exist? And in the case of wave, you have this mathematical idea of a wave, the circle definition of a wave, idealized, but you also have the wheel or the log from the side as a circle. It's not even trying to be a perfect circle. It's circular. Um, but you also have the word wave, meaning the wave you see in the water, the complicated, the one that's not even trying to be a sine wave or any perfectly mathematical wave. Though with Fourier transforms, you can actually decompose it into that, which is interesting. But okay, so since I'm working out, it's like for a field, yeah, the concept of a field, I don't even know exactly what that's supposed to be. So saying it doesn't exist is like I have to read people's mind. I'm not sure if they even have a particular idea. But what I like about fields is that there's a phenomena of space. There's locality, which is actually kind of defined by the fact that there's distance, right? There could be connection and there's separation over this spatial thing. And a field is really just a word for space where it's like, hey, space is filled with stuff that's spatially related. The value here is related to the local value next to it, and yet it itself is not matter. It's not even energy. What is it? I don't know. There's a phenomena there that needs a name while we try to figure out exactly what it's like. So when you reject that idea or the idea of wave, I'm curious. I think I know that you're not rejecting the timeliness, the fundamental aspect that time has to be taken into account, right? At any given moment, you have an interval of change, and if you want to break it down into a small moment, there's still an interval of change. And if there's a smallest discrete moment, like I'm a big fan of Wolfram. I read that book when it came out. I was incredible. It was like because I'd been a fan back in the '80s of that dude. So um, I get that idea. There's some weird things still about it with the relativistic size of it. I could go into that. Um, but like there's the smallest distance, so there's no details in it. But then they found out uh, they think they can in that cosmic background. They do see what was inside it spread up because for the stuff inside it, it also has, it's got a relative smallest size. So in a way, it still unifies this continuity and discontinuity, right? So there is a discrete nature, um, but it sort of scales in. It's very scalable or whatever. Maybe that's what they're getting in with the scale free. So going from perceptions is like, are there waves? Yes, this is a phenomena of time. There's clearly, I think, you could see the energy transfer in the wave. Um, Fields as a medium or just because, oh, it's not a plasma of some weird energy or mass or, it's empty space, but it's not empty. There's a magnetic field there that'll move a magnet. There's, so I guess the question is, how do you want to characterize that phenomena, right? Going from what we can sense, I sense that there is space. And I sense that there's a phenomena of these ripples. And the word wave is just, hey, we found a way to characterize it mathematically. In the case of field, um, if you want to get rid of, it's like we're stuck there from my side, where if you want to get rid of the idea of field, like, let's say you had Wolfram's set of cells. Wouldn't that still be a field? You'd just be going, hey, the field's not continuous, it's discrete, right? Wouldn't that be semantically equivalent? Or no? What is the part of beyond, hey, there's space and there's different characteristics in space besides whether matter and energy are there? On the other hand, you could say matter and energy do have to be there for there to be that field, and this gets into the weird idea of maybe there's some particle or particle interaction that creates space. Like space could be an illusion. Things, a different dimension could be space and all that weird stuff. Um, I don't know. I want to make an understanding of the universe where we build up from the smallest, but I just as much want a big picture where we build down. And really, I always remember I'm in the middle and I'm building out. And so when I get down to the smallest, most fundamentally tiny elemental thing, the simplest things, um, both physically but also just logically simpler things, I realize that I'm in outer space down there. I'm not really building as I build up my understanding back from these small things to what's normal, macroscopic or whatever in my scale. I don't actually think that I went and built myself up here. And often people are going like, well, you got to build your way up here. Then you know you're right. It's like, no, you can't build you're working out always, no matter what you do. It gets fainter and fainter as you get into the more abstract and tiny physical elements, and then your interpretation, the concepts. And again, as a skeptic, I always I I always feel that the concept behind the phenomena, like the reliable part, okay, so this is the whole thing I've said over for years, the extension and the intention. The extension is like you have a net and you grab things, okay, with fields, it's space and the fact that there can be things like gravitational field there and magnetic field there, values. Just it's like a place to put some values over there. Why? Because if there's a magnet there, it's going to be pulled by that a certain amount and all of that stuff that you know, right? So it's it's a net at one point to say, well, there's that phenomena. Then there's the intention. That's the extension of a term. Then there's the intention, which is like the dictionary definition of like a field is the spread out of a and it's continuous or whatever that you might say characterizing this net you've put out, right? And so it's the net part. I know it when I see it that is actually the reliable thing. Now, in some cases, when you get a really good intentional definition, you use it then to tighten up your extension, which can be too loose. Like, I know art when I see it, or I can't define pornography, but I know when I see it, that would be the extensional definition, and there is no principled definition. But sometimes that's too sloppy. People can abuse that. People are just using their intuition. It becomes a category of convenience and you can have an intentional definition that tightens that up and keeps you honest and finds a principle that binds them. So I will admit, yeah, I do buy a lot of the rhetoric of fields. I'm not sure how the continuity thing plays out right now. I'm betting on some sort of fundamental irony where the whole distinction between continuity and discreteness becomes obsolete, right? Because to me it seems like there's a weird dual characteristic that can't be true. There is a unifying principle, and the missing piece must be in our cognitive evolution. So, okay. Yeah, I know. I wandered a little bit because I barely made any notes right before I did it. I've been thinking about this for a few days. So, um, I guess I'm just saying we see a wave that's the solid thing when you're moving out from the middle, and the fact that there's no perfect wave um, doesn't mean the word wave isn't identifying a real thing. Way more than a circle, but also a circle. I mean, a circle could be thought of as a phenomenon in nature. You see a berry cross section, it's a circle, a slide of a log. You know, we see this shape, and so we categorize it and think of it as a phenomena. Why would we think of it as a thing that's just sitting there as a phenomena? Well, because the phenomena is that we noticed and looked at it for 3 seconds, 10 seconds. We see it every day. That's the phenomena, that this image happens to us, and we naturally categorize. And by naturally, I mean obviously the brain is an information processing machine, which one of the main functions is of that kind of machine is to categorize data. Just it's a way of compressing what you have to remember. All right. Cheers.